Hi, it's James Rees from Old Heroics MMA. I'm here this morning with Modestas Bukauskas. How's things doing, mate? All right?
Yeah, doing good, thank you.
Yeah, good to hear. Obviously, since the announcement of signing with the UFC, how's that affected you so far?
To be honest, everything stayed relatively the same. Nothing's really changed. Still training as normal, still training as usual, twice a day. Like I know some guys, before they hear that a fight's coming up, they maybe train a little bit less. But for me, not, everything stayed the same. I still train as hard as I do, still trying to improve, still trying to level up. The only thing is now, maybe a couple more DMs here and there. But really, apart from that, everything just goes on as normal. I think as a martial artist, you've got to make sure that you're always trying to get to the next level in whatever you're doing. So I'm obviously trying to bring more and more skill sets to the cage as I enter it every time, and I'm definitely en route towards that.
Yeah, it was on top of your game. With a record of 10 wins, 2 losses at the moment. Obviously, after those 2 losses, you took 2 years out. I believe I read it was an injury that basically led to that. How do you feel that sort of impacted your step forward? Because obviously since then you're on a 6-fight win streak. Obviously it seems to have, funny enough, benefited you really.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of things that I needed to change actually after the second loss. To be honest, I don't think it was much of a skill set wise thing that caused those losses. I mean, in the second fight, I got caught with a punch. At the end of the day, it can happen to the best of them. It was more, like first thing obviously was nutrition was something that I really needed to sort of look into. I didn't really think too much about it. I used to cut weight in the most horrendous way possible, and I know fighters still do that now, drop their calories way too little. So that was one thing that I changed that made me feel more energized for training sessions. Another thing was I was like completely overtrained. There's a lot of, again, you hear a lot, I train 3-4 times a day. And I'm like, and the thing is, I can't even think to be able to train even 3 times a day. Twice a day is literally the most that I do, because when I train, it's, I go a bit pedal to the metal. I don't necessarily take a lighter session at all. So when I train this, I'm giving it all out. I do like 100%. So that was another thing. I was like severely overtrained, just because I just thought, the more you do, the better you are. But realistically, you need to train smart as well. I know that'll be, quite a bit of advice to maybe some younger fighters, because, some people think the more you do is better, but really it isn't. You need to have quality sessions. Another thing was obviously that I started doing boxing sparring. That just I needed a bit more aggression. I don't think I had enough of that. I was always the sportsman. I was always, the athlete who wanted to, just do everything, right by the book, obviously compete. But yeah, it was only to compete, not to let me go and absolutely destroy this guy that I got in front of me. So I think the boxing sparring, because those guys literally don't hold back, that was one thing, again, that I added that brought out the fire in me, So there was a lot of things that I improved that particular year when I had those losses, that towards the end of the year, I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like next fight, I'm going to be, on top of my game. Everything was going perfect. And then that's when the injury happened. When the knee injury happened, a lot of things sort of went downhill and went wrong. I was pretty much at the bottom of my, at the worst point probably ever in my life. And then, it was just I had good people around me. I had my dad always telling me, like, son, you're going to do it. You just got to keep fighting. You got to keep believing in yourself. He was the main I mean, listen, obviously, like my other family, but, the main person was obviously my dad. He always believed in me. He always said, listen, you're going to do good. You just got to keep going at it. Like, you can't give up. So, obviously then we managed to get an operation. You know what, NHS, they do a good job, man. Like literally as soon as I told them, within a week they got the operation sorted. That for me was like already a good sign, you know, that things were going to start improving. The fact that literally they said, oh, we've got an opening next week, and I was like, wow, that was good. So it meant that we didn't have to, you know, spend any money to do it privately, because obviously we wanted to get it sorted as soon as possible. So and they've done a great job, you know. They fixed my knee, and then yeah, it was just obviously because I had my meniscus repaired, I had, you know, a bit more of a longer recovery. Usually people who, you know, shave it off or whatever, or take it out, it only takes 4 weeks to recover. It took me about, you know, I recovered a bit faster because I took physio very seriously. Obviously, I wanted to get back in as quick as I could. But yeah, and then literally, I think those experiences, being at the lowest point of your life, like literally nothing now will be able to derail me. You know, I've had so many, you know, so much adversity that I had to go through, that I think that not only makes you stronger mentally, you know, everything. It made me stronger physically. It made me work on different things that I didn't work on, and you know, stuff like that. So I feel like if I didn't have those events that happen, or didn't have those losses, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have the mindset that I have today. So I'm always eternally grateful for all those experiences, because now I feel like this is where the roller coaster is only just starting to go on that way up. So I can't wait for that.
It's crazy if things happen though. Something so bad can lead into something, you know, in theory so good, really.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we spoke about your record, 10-2. Like what we haven't mentioned so far is 9 of those 10 wins have all come via stoppage. I think only one of those have actually gone past the second round. Is there something specific you work on? Because obviously, I mean, that's quite an explosive thing to have only gone past the second round once. Obviously, it takes a certain sort of mindset to be able to go out there and do that.
I think you just gotta go in there with the intention of, if I see an opening to finish, I'm going to take it. I think, you know, going in there, you can have sort of a mindset just to go out on points, and I don't think, like, every shot I'm throwing it with bad intentions. I think even Nathaniel Wood commentated on one of my fights, and he even said that. He said every shot is thrown with bad intentions, and that's how I train. You know, a lot of I see a lot of, and you know, don't get me wrong, you know, there's good training methods and good things out there, but you know, when me and my dad train, you know, he's always trained me to hit, you know, hard every single shot. He trains me not to hold back at all. Like, you know, no light shots, no setup shots, literally just hell for leather every single shot. So I think that helps with, you know, getting those finishes. You know, and realistically, the first fight probably would have ended with a finish if it wasn't for, you know, my leg was badly damaged in that fight. So my debut was the only one that went to decision, and yeah, after about 2 rounds, I could barely walk. That third round was literally just survival. The first 2 rounds, I clearly gone up on the scorecards. And then the third round was literally, I just need to keep sticking and moving and just not. That was a fight where I literally, the third round was, I could not look for a finish just because I was physically incapable. But yeah, I think as well, yeah, especially in my last couple of fights, I needed to finish the fight. Like with Wojciech, if I would let it to go to decision, I would have lost. If I would have let it go to decision against Hamlet, I would have lost. So at the end of the day, I think a bit of a sense of urgency is also another key tool to sort of bring it out to want to finish the guy. But yeah, man, I think you got to go out. Like I said, it all comes with mindset. You know, you don't just want to see, you know, they want to see finishes. So I'm happy that, you know, that's been instilled in me, because, you know, it just adds to my resume. I didn't even realize that, you know, when I looked at my record, I was like, wow, I've actually got 9 finishes. I didn't even notice that. But obviously, that's one big thing that, you know, organizations like the UFC look at. So I'm hoping to obviously just build on that record.
Yeah, I mean, talking about going in there with bad intentions, I mean, the way you beat Nasiglia in Cage Warriors 111, I mean, that was quite a nasty finish.
Yeah.
You don't see anything like that these days.
I mean,
where did it? I watched that ending a couple of times, and I still can't figure out what he was actually trying to do at that point. I mean, because the way he sort of shot in, he was sort of too high for a single leg, and I mean, he was too low for a clinch. I mean, what was you thinking? You must have thought Holy Christmas has come at once, did you?
Literally, yeah. I mean, look, when we were in the fight, it was clear that he didn't want to strike. This is what I find is quite weird. I know that, and this is why I'm happy that now, and I know 100% because there's a lot more on the line fighting in the UFC. Those guys are going to come out and actually strike. They're probably going to come out and strike with me. But it seems like everyone's had a bit of a, they've had a tendency not to want to strike with me. Wojciech was predominantly a striker. He decided to wrestle with me. Hamlet, same thing. He decided that he wanted to, even though he stayed in front of me quite a lot, his intention was to try and wrestle me. So with Nasilia, he went with, I went with punches initially, and he didn't throw a punch. He just went in straight for the takedown. Even when we got back up, I was sort of halfway between, should I just break and hit again, or should I keep him in the clinch? Because obviously, if I would have broken, tried to hit again, he's going to want to try and take me down again. So I'm like, I don't really want to be in that situation. I thought maybe I can wear him down a little bit against the cage and then start working on, working my strikes a little bit more. And then, I just felt like very relaxed. And then he reversed me onto the cage. And yeah, I do agree with you. I don't really know 100. He looked like he was trying to go for a single leg because they showed in the replay I had one of his hands. So I was actually holding one of his hands. So I wasn't allowing him to get like such a strong grip on my leg. I was sort of riding that hand up. So I actually had like quite an amazing grip on that side. Like it was almost like it like locked into place. So, and then it's funny, my dad always tells me all the sequences, like all the last sequences to win a fight. He always tells me like in the Wojciech fight, spinning back kick with Hamlet, he goes, the right hand will land. And lo and behold, over here, he goes, elbows, elbows, elbows. And I was like, oh, hold on a minute, there's elbows here. And then, yeah, it was just a case of finding the right spot, because obviously you're not allowed to hit to certain. But again, we went over it like in the changing room backstage. Like they asked me, like what sort of, have you got any other questions? Because they changed a particular rule. And I was like, where's the back of the head? And I think that's so weird because, it all happened how like everything sort of fit into place. Like I said, like a jigsaw puzzle, I asked them that, but I had no idea that I'd have to use it in the fight. I was expecting a different finish, but it all just sort of played out like really well. But yeah, his intention was to take me down again. But I think because I had that grip on that hand and he didn't realize that his head was like right. I don't think anyone ever has wanted to try and strike him like that. And I just think maybe he was a bit hesitant to strike with me. And that's why he stayed in that position. He didn't want to, because obviously if he would have broke away from me, it would cause a striking exchange. So, in that case, I think that was why he ended up staying there, not breaking free and doing something different.
Yeah. One great finish that was, got to be said. Obviously, we spoke about you being signed up now with the UFC. No sign of any fight news at the moment, or?
Yeah. Well, from what I've been told by my management, it should be sometime in summer. Will be the debut. Obviously, they've got so many guys on their roster, and they have to fill out particular fights, and some of the bigger names as well. So, realistically, at the end of the day, I look at it as a good thing because it just means I can improve even more. The longer you wait, the more I get to improve, the more I can, level up. So, obviously, I would have loved to fight on the London card, but I don't even realize there's quite a lot of British fighters now signed to the UFC. I think Britain's starting to make a real push towards causing, a bit of havoc in the UFC. So obviously they had a lot of British born fighters that they needed to put on that card as well. So yeah, mate, look, when the debut comes, I just know that I'll be ready. And to be fair, if it is somewhere in America, I mean, I actually don't mind traveling either. You know, I remember I fought one time in Sweden, and I loved the whole experience. So obviously, whenever the time comes, man, we'll be ready.
Yeah, I mean, is there someone specific you'd like to go out and start with, or is it literally just first come first served?
Yeah, I think.
Anyone at all works.
I mean, listen, if I could fight anyone, I'll definitely fight someone in the top 15 right now. But at the end of the day, until it gets to the top 15, I don't reckon I'll be calling anyone out, because at the minute I'm not even 100% sure. You know, all the people in the division, even, you know, I'm sort of in a mindset now. Whoever they put in front of me, I'll just go and take them out. So yeah, man, I just got to work my way up the ranks. I reckon, you know, within 3-4 fights, you know, you can get within the upper echelons of the division, and then that's when I can, you know, start targeting specific people. But right now, I'm just like, you know, they'll give me an opponent, then I'll look at him, I'll look at his tape and stuff like that, and then get straight to it. So yeah, man, we like I said, we just got to keep climbing that ladder.
Yeah. Funny shit, I was reading a couple of weeks ago that a certain one of your Cage Warriors fighters was attempting to get himself a fight in London for the UFC, Kenneth Berger. I mean, was there any sort of chance at all of that happening?
No. See, the thing is, I understand you've got to do promotion. Like, you know, I have no disrespect to him or his team or anything like that, but, you know, usually I stay quiet. I don't say nothing. You know, I stay within myself, because, you know, I don't really let anything get to me that much. But at the end of the day, I feel like now, you know, I should be a bit more outspoken about how I feel. Not many people know that he's pulled out from me 3 times already. So, you know, when he's starting to call me out, you know, the first time we were supposed to fight, it was in Sweden. He pulled out 3 days before the fight, or I think 4 days before the fight, and then he ended up being in the corner of my opponent, which I thought was a little bit strange. Then there was another opportunity that came up for him to fight me in Fight Star Championship. I mean, you know, that so we had the promoter, we said yes, and then even the guy's manager said yes, and then he came back, and then apparently there was some medical issues that he had. So I'm like, okay. So that's why I ended up having a different fight for Fight Star, and winning the belt there. And then when I came back to Cage Warriors, I mean, listen, if there's a title opportunity in front of you, why don't you take it? Do you know what I mean? I understand he fought I think he fought in the Contender Series, so that was obviously going to be his way to get into the UFC. But then it's like, okay, well, then there was a chance for you to fight me in November. You know, if they know that they're looking for fights for me, why don't you go and try and win the Cage Warriors belt? Decided not to do that either. So that's already, like I said, 3 opportunities that he decided to miss out on purposely. And then yeah, as soon as the UFC comes up, oh yeah, I'm going to call him out. And I'm like, mate, I've literally worked so hard to get to where I am. I've literally paid my dues. I fought the top European guys, like literally the top guys in Europe, to get to where I am now. So obviously he has to do the same thing. I'm not about, you know, giving someone. I've done this. I've earned this road the hard way. I've not done this you know, by just giving a shot. That would just be giving a guy a shot. And another thing, I've just been signed to the UFC. Why are you calling out a UFC fight if you're not in the UFC? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like you have to earn your spot, and he's not earned his spot yet. I mean, you know, if you look at the combined records of who I fought and who he's fought, you know, very different numbers. On my guys that I fought, they've all had much more winning records. So, you know, I just feel like a guy like that should stop trying to call out a guy that's in the UFC and actually work to get to that point. Go to Cage Warriors, go win the title, go fight the top guys and get your shot that way. You know, that is like an understandable route, but calling out a guy that's just made it just for you to sort of cling on a name to get there because we've had a bit of a history. But I'm like, the history is that you pulled out on me a load of times. So guess what? I ain't gonna take a fight with you because now it's my turn to be a dick, really. Do you know what I mean? You know, so he decided to have his turn to not take a fight. Now it's gonna be my turn not to take a fight with you. So, I mean, listen, if he gets to the UFC and he earns his contract and then of course I would love to fight him. But until that happens, unfortunately, there's nothing that I can do for him.
Yeah, it all seemed to me, to be honest, like a bit of trying to get himself a contract more than any legitimacy in the actual comments. Just to finish off then, were you hoping to see yourself in a year's time? I mean, what are you looking to get out of this year? 1 or 2 UFC wins under your belt, maybe?
Well, it's actually written on my little vision board here. It's been doing me real good for the last couple of fights. So I actually have it written on there that I'm going to compete 3 times this year and win all fights by stoppage. So that's one thing that I've written down. The other one is to win at least 1 performance bonus and give it all to my parents. That was one thing that, you know, fighting in the UFC, you know, obviously the rewards are much greater. And, you know, one thing that, you know, as much as fighting because I love the sport and stuff like that, I also want to fight to help the people around me. I feel like I've had such amazing support and such, like, you know, such amazing love around me. Like, there's been people that have been very close. That's one thing that's been just like a key to my success. I have people that love me and care about me, that are with me constantly. So they're always looking out for me and wanting the best for me. So to be able to help them out, that's like a massive thing for me. I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing this for everyone. And, you know, even, you know, representing my country of birth, you know, Lithuania as well. So, but yeah, that was another thing I have written on there. I want to give them all of, like, if I win a performance bonus, just give it all to my parents, just because they definitely deserve it. If they can put it towards something, you know, maybe the mortgage on the house or something, obviously that'll be a massive help. So, and then the last thing is to be ranked in the top 15 light heavyweights by the end of those fights. So that's another big thing on my mind. You know, within a year, I want to be a staple in the division, and I know that there's going to be, you know, a lot of guys that I'll need to get through to get towards the top. But I'm willing to fight anyone, and I know that my skill set is going to get to the point where it's going to be very tough for anyone to handle me. So I'm just going to keep training, keep getting better, and keep working my way up the ranks. And yeah, like, as I say, hopefully all those visions will come to reality also.
Yeah, that's really something. Yeah. Well, look, Modestas, I want to thank you for taking your time out and doing this, mate. It's appreciated.
No
and
worries, man.
Want to wish you good luck in the future, mate.
Oh, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Thanks again, mate.